So everyone, welcome to Midwife Galena's YouTube channel. Today we get to talk to, well, really what I'm trying to do is get more, people's perspective of birth and midwifery care in general, right? And like, what's the difference? Why should somebody get a midwife? What are the benefits? What did you see as a mom being pregnant as the main differences that you really enjoyed? So we have Jennifer, who is here, which thank you. And Jen has been with us for a while. She was a client of mine. And then I will let you, Jen, explain your evolution to where you are today in the birth world. So you take it away with how you got to where you are, and then we'll get your perspective on your different birth experiences.
Okay, cool. So I got here, it all started with my first pregnancy. And where I am now is I am a student midwife in my second year. Looking forward to becoming a licensed midwife soon. So it's all very exciting. So after I had my second baby, I became a doula. And then I became a birth assistant, and then now I am a student midwife. So that has been sort of my evolution in the birth world. But it did all really start with my first pregnancy. To be honest, didn't think midwives were even a thing anymore. I didn't know that they existed.
Fair to say, neither did I with my first one. So we're even.
So it was not a thing that was part of my circle. Every single person I knew in my life had an OB, and they had a hospital birth. That is just the way it was. So my own mother had 3 C-sections.
Wow.
And so I never thought one thing about all of that. I just thought that is what it is, fine.
Mm-hmm.
So, but all my friends started pregnant, and they went down the same road. And every story you heard was, in my opinion, not ideal, a little bit scary, a little bit, just a lot of unknowns, actually, just a lot. And so, I think that probably planted a seed for me that I didn't know was even anything until I found out I was pregnant. So I find out I'm pregnant, I go and I make my OB appointment to the OB that everybody went to, where I lived at the time.
It's always one.
Yeah. And my sister-in-law was pregnant a few months before. Well, our babies are a few months apart, so she was a little farther down the road, and this is who she went to. And she said she liked them, and it was a whole practice, so there was multiple doctors in that practice. I went in for my first appointment, super excited, new mom, just found out I was pregnant, like, tell me everything. I was so pumped. And quickly, very, very disappointed.
Which is so unfortunate.
It is, I think it's something that they do every single day. But for me, it was my first pregnancy.
Yes.
So it was new and exciting. And, I know we're going to get to it, but that's one of the standouts I find between traditional OB care and midwifery care is, it's more just, a conveyor belt at the OB. That's kind of how I felt, is you jump on, you just follow the process, and the baby comes out at the end, and then we move on to the next mom. Midwifery is so different in that way. But anyway,
and I feel just because, and I think I say this because I don't want it to seem like we're bashing the other side. I want it more to be an understanding of just the differences, right? Like, I feel that midwifery care is more, and we'll talk about the perks of it all, but it's because, and I think that OBs, and you kind of give me your perspective, I feel like they have to do a conveyor belt because they're seeing so many people for really the wrong reasons, right? So they're just like, okay, you're fine, get out. Like, I need to get to the problem people because that's what I do. I handle risk factors and I have to resolve them. Whereas we are, we get the low risk people who are healthy. So we get to indulge more and really try to keep them healthy and low risk by providing all of this education. And I think in the medical system, they just assume that that's being handled and they're doing their job, and it's not. And it's getting like, that's where that big gap is. But I just wanted to add that because that's kind of my feeling on it all.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And it is absolutely not to bash OB care because it's so, so important just under the right circumstances.
Right.
And it's not for everyone. And I think the thing that's missing is women don't know that they have other choices. And that's where I was. I didn't even look into anything. I was just like, sign me up. I'm here.
Yeah.
And so I was super excited. But my husband and I had a ton of questions. And red flag number one was my husband had asked the OB about her experience, and she was deeply offended, like as if he was saying she was incompetent or didn't have experience. He just simply wanted to know what her experience was.
Sure.
So that was red flag number one. Red flag number two, though, was that even though I didn't have like a full grasp on what I wanted my birth experience to be like, I did feel like I wanted to try and do it naturally without any medications. I wanted to try that.
I think instinctively we as women want that, right? It's almost like in our makeup, we kind of think that's what we're supposed to do, which makes sense.
Yeah, I think like pretty immediately you get this mothering sense of like, oh man, I am now in charge of this other human being. And I want to make all the right choices. I want to do all the right things, whatever that means for you, it just starts to happen. And so you want to take care of that little thing that is growing inside of you. And so I just asked her, I said, I'm really thinking about trying to do this naturally. Like, what are your thoughts? And she was like, you can try, but if you're not dilating 1 centimeter every hour, I'm going to need to help you because you're going to get too tired. And I was like, you don't know me. You just met me. You just met me. How do you know when I'm going to get tired? How do you know that, and I think also that there was something inside of me that was like, but that doesn't make sense. That everyone's body moves at exactly the same time.
Right. Which clearly is not the case.
Exactly the same as my friends and family. Like, why would all of a sudden my cervix dilate at the exact same rate that everybody else's does? It just like didn't add up for me.
We're not machines.
Exactly. So I left that appointment and my husband left that appointment just like, that's probably not the place for us. We didn't get a good, warm, fuzzy feeling out of it.
Right.
And I know like we work with a lot of women and I talk to a lot of women who absolutely adore their OBs, and do get that warm and fuzzy feeling. And that's awesome. I just didn't get it. And it led me down this road that was, what are my other choices? Like, where else do we go from here? And so we started interviewing, and I actually watched The Business of Being Born. And that was when I was like, oh my God, I think
such an eye opener
around.
Yeah.
And so I started looking, and the practice that we ended up choosing was a certified nurse midwife practice, and they did hospital births. But the moment I walked in the door there, like they had a little fireplace going. It was like, there was a soft, comfy couch. There was beds in the exam rooms and little desks, and everything felt like home. Everything felt warm. It felt cozy. I was able to go in and do like, you leave your urine sample. I was able to do my own dipsticks. I was able to have they handed me my chart. They did paper charting then, but they handed me my chart. And so I was able to carry that into my appointment with me and ask questions. And so it was just completely night and day. And
Yeah.
for us as a couple, we felt more comfortable in the hospital at that time. But the care that we got with the midwives was just, and I would tell my friends, like, over dinner, we would meet up and we'd talk about like our pregnancies and how it was going. And it was so different than the experience that they were getting. And I was so grateful for it. I was so grateful that I had found it. I had found these women that were willing to listen to me and like
Yeah.
really cared. Um, and I just felt really like seen and really loved, and like I was the most important person in their practice. Like that's how they made me feel.
That's
And
awesome.
so I I I had a beautiful birth experience, beautiful hospital birth experience. So I am one of those who had just, I couldn't say enough good things about it, but I really do attribute it to the fact that the midwives had prepared me so well for
Right.
the experience I was going to have. And also, they were who I dealt with at the hospital.
Mhm.
They were sort of these protectors. And so they prepared me so well, probably too well, that I ended up staying at home long after I probably
Aha.
should have gone to the
You're
hospital.
one of those. Okay.
I was one of those. I I woke up that morning and had to pee like I did every single night. And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up, I went to go to the bathroom, and I peed, and then a whole lot of fluid came out. And I was like, wait a second. I don't think that was just pee. So I get up and more came out.
Mhm.
And so I was like, that was my water. My water just broke. But I wasn't having contractions. And I felt really calm about the whole thing, and
Right.
it's so different than what you see on TV. Like,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, you think that it's going to be this panic, this rush, but this calm came over me like, okay, this is happening. I'm going
Game
to do
time.
it. Yeah. And so I sat up by myself. I didn't even wake up my husband. I sat up by myself for a little bit. I'm like, I feel fine. Everything's fine. And about 2 hours later, contractions started. And so I felt like, I'm kind of tired. The midwife said I should rest. Let me get back into bed for a little bit. I get into bed and he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, my water broke and contractions started. And I lay my head down. He like shot up and was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm going to
Right.
take a little nap. I'm fine. So I had a doula for that birth. So she ended up coming over a few hours later, sat with us for a little bit. But really, contractions were manageable. I felt really good. She ended up leaving to take a shower. And contractions started to kick on a lot more intensely. But I didn't have any gauge for like, are we still at the beginning? Or is this going to,
It's hard when you're in it.
yeah, I was really trying to not be one that got to the hospital too early. That was like my
Right.
goal, is don't get
Mhm.
there too early. So I, now knowing what I know, I locked myself in the bathroom
Really?
and I felt like I had to poop. And
Yeah, and I don't remember this story.
yes. So
I don't remember anything. You know that.
I like, I think a lot of people had a very deep fear about pooping while I was giving birth.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I was like, I have to poop. I'm going to poop on the toilet. I'm going to get it all out before I get there. So my doula comes back and she is clearly listening to me on the other side of the door. And she was like, do you feel like you need to poop? And I was like, yes. And she goes, that is your baby's head. I need you to get off the toilet because we need to go to the hospital. And I was like, oh, okay. So I waddled. It had snowed right before,
Oh
because it was
man.
February in New Jersey. And so it had just snowed. So I had to climb over like snow mounds that fell the
Oh,
street. My
not
husband really,
fun.
no, it was not fun
But
to
you
wake
probably
up
did a lot of good work with progressing.
for sure. But I would not recommend waiting that long. That was
Yeah.
too long. But my husband was driving like a maniac, and I'm sure I gave him a heart attack. And I showed up to the hospital, and when they checked me, I was 9 centimeters and ready to go. Yeah, so I ended up pushing for about 3 hours, which is a long time. However, for a first-time mom, like, it takes a while to get into your groove,
It
to figure
does.
it all out.
It feels weird. It's totally different than contractions, the pushing.
Totally different. And I wouldn't say, like, I think a lot of people, this is another fear, is like, pushing for that long. But it really, I felt so in control of it that it did not scare me or make me feel uncomfortable. It honestly was a little bit relieving, even though I was doing it for so long.
That's how I felt about pushing too. Yes.
Yeah. So I pushed in every position you could possibly imagine. I was on my side. I was on a birth stool. I finally got in the tub, and that is where
at the hospital.
At the hospital, the midwives,
nice,
huge tub, and so yeah, it was really beautiful. But I was all over the place, and I remember having this thought, like, you just need to let go, and let the baby be born. Like, just do it. Now is the time. And once I did that, she was born. She came out swimming in the water. The midwives were like, pick up your baby. But we have pictures of her literally eyes open under the water with her little hands, like, just.
That's awesome.
I picked her up. She didn't even cry, like, what you see on TV, like that scream. It was such a peaceful, like, I literally could watch her body getting pink. And she was breathing beautifully. She was making little baby sounds. It was so peaceful. And I mean, I just loved it. I felt so powerful. Like, I did this. Like, I couldn't believe it, but I was so proud of myself. That's really the only word I can use. I was really just like, wow, I did that.
Well, it's a big thing. You should be proud of yourself.
Yeah. And she ended up being 10 pounds, 2 ounces.
Holy snap.
And so I say this because, again, the other big fear that we hear about all the time is like, this baby's going to be huge. This baby's going to be huge. I'm not special. Like, there's nothing different about me. I am not some superhuman person, but like, I really believe I was able to birth the baby I grew, and clearly I was. And had I stuck with an OB practice, they would have had me doing ultrasounds, and they would have been telling me that my baby was really big. I am happy that I did not know she was going to be 10 pounds, 2 ounces.
Well,
Trust me.
Yeah.
If I had known that, that definitely would have messed with my mind.
Absolutely. Who wants to know? There's a lot. Just don't tell me. Let's just do it. Because technically, from our perspective as midwives, it's really all the same, right? Like, once that head gets through, I mean, the rest of the body usually is a lot easy. So that I always tell people that weight isn't always, it's in the girth, like, length. That kind of a thing. Don't get freaked out by the 10 pounds. You don't know where that 10 pounds could be in length. It could be in who knows. So it shouldn't freak people out.
Some of these bigger babies, like, they're just squish. It's just squish. It's not like, like you're saying, like a 10-pound skull coming through.
Right. No, you're not getting that.
You're getting a squishy little baby. Right. Yeah. So anyway, it ended up being really amazing, and it was such a great experience. The part that was not so great was the hospital stay afterwards. And I feel like this is the part that no one talks about, which is the nurses have to do certain protocols after the baby is born. And we have the same sort of protocols as midwives, except that we are not staying with you for 3 days straight. And so I didn't really sleep that whole time I was at the hospital.
You can't.
You're going to rest. But every time I closed my eyes, somebody was coming in to poke, to take a test, to do all this stuff. And I got home and I was just beyond exhausted. So that really informed my decision when I got pregnant with my second baby to have a home birth, because the drive to the hospital the first time was brutal. And then the afterwards, the actual like recovery in the hospital was brutal. And
Right.
so
It's
I
not
ended up,
comfortable.
no, it's really not. I ended up moving, and so I looked into midwives closer to my house. And I found this home birth midwife. And again, it was like a totally different situation. Her office was in a house by the beach.
Oh,
It was
wow.
an apartment, so it was super cute. And
Uh,
I met her. She gave me a big hug. She was definitely like super crunchy. And I loved it. I really loved it. And I learned a lot from all of the midwives I have been with. And so that experience was just so empowering because she really like every question I had for her, she really challenged me on like figuring out why I was asking it or what information I needed to know and gave me resources to look into things. And then she was such a good sounding board for like, well, I'm still confused about this, or I still have more questions about that. And she just really listened and really like helped me figure out what it was that was truly important to me and not so
mhm.
much to like everyone else around me. So
Right.
um that baby, I ended up I was like, okay, I got this. I know exactly what I'm doing this time. And so I woke up and I felt really tired and I just wanted to kind of lay down and I was feeling a little crampy. I didn't say anything to anybody. My mom was staying with me so that she could help with my other one who was not even 2. And I had a midwife appointment that day. And so I'm like, I'm just going to chill until I see the midwife. And so we got there probably about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. She asked me to go to the bathroom. And on my way, she was like, have you been having any contractions? And my mom was like, nope, nothing. And I was like, yes. And she was like, okay. So I go to the bathroom and she goes, any bloody show? And I'm like, right now, just came out. So she was like, we did our appointment, baby sounded great, everything was good. And then she told me to call her when I needed her. I woke up probably 4 o'clock the next morning and I was like, it's happening.
Go
So
time.
I called her about 6 a.m. She came over to check me, 8 centimeters. I just walked around my house. I felt so comfortable. Like, it was a rainy day, so everything was a little bit dark and
The mood
cozy.
was set for you.
It was, and it makes such a difference.
Yeah.
Those things do
Well, it
matter.
helps the hormones that we need to flow freely so that your body can feel safe and relaxed to birth a human that you are connected to.
Yeah, and I think, part of what drove me to be a doula was letting people know that they do have those choices. Even in
Hmm.
a hospital setting, you have choices. And so like little things like turning out the lights does make a big difference
Right.
in the overall experience. So yeah, the birth tub was set up in my kitchen and I was like, I'm having another water birth. It's gonna be great. Um, and so I labored in the tub for a while. But then things started to slow down, which we see a
Mm.
lot.
Yeah.
So I got out for a little bit. I walked around a little bit. My husband and I were in my bedroom for a little while, just the two of us by ourselves. And I all of a sudden was like, okay, I think I got to get back in the tub. I took one step and it was like, nope. I jumped on my bed and I literally was like, okay, my body pushed and I was like, okay, this baby's coming out. I am not pushing for 3 more hours. So I pushed. My midwife was like, slow down. I was like, oh no, eviction notice. She's coming out. So 2 pushes, that baby was out.
Be
And I was
ready.
like, yeah. But it was so awesome to have my mom cook my food after, for
Yeah. Oh,
postpartum.
that is nice.
I was
Hmm.
snuggled up in my own bed. I was
Hmm.
like, this is a dream. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. Um, so then that brings me to my third baby, which was with you. Um,
Which I
and
missed.
I, again, we moved. But I was as soon as I walked into the birth center, I was like, I turned to my husband. I'm like, these are my people. Like, smell great, the whole atmosphere was like warm and cozy. And I was like, this is going to be good. So then I got to meet you, and I automatically was like, okay, this is it. We're good. So,
I
and
love that.
it was really huge because, you know, I transferred into latent care, which is, I
Which is
think, another
scary.
thing. People don't know that they're able to change providers.
Right.
But I was probably, I think I probably met you when I was about 24 weeks pregnant, but I didn't move until I was 34 weeks pregnant. So I didn't start seeing you regularly until that point. So we only
Right.
had so much time to like bond. But
Yeah.
it is possible to change providers. You know, like if you're feeling red flags,
Yeah.
like do it. Please change. Find
I think
somebody
the
that you find.
latest I got was she was, I forget how many weeks she was, but I met her on Monday and she had the baby Thursday. Well, went into labor Wednesday and had the baby Thursday. Like that's how fast our visit was, but it was an immediate, it's a connection. Like I feel like you kind of, when you make that decision late in care to transfer, you know what you want and you're almost like, I'm not stopping until I get it. So when you get it, it's like a click. And then so it's nice because it's a lot of that bonding happens fairly quickly. You know what I mean? Oh, I have 10 minutes left of our Zoom. Okay. So we're going to speed it up before.
All right. So, again, I just had such a wonderful experience prenatally with you. And I, you know, got to meet Sandy too, which is, you know, your partner and backup midwife, and you know, just had a good connection. And that turned out to be a really good thing because this baby decided it wasn't coming until almost 42 weeks. So I was right up against the deadline. I did not want to have a hospital birth. I wanted to have this baby at home. And so we worked together a lot about that. And it turned out that you had a pre-planned trip right towards the end of my pregnancy. And of course, you left the day that I went into labor.
Of course.
So, but we had talked about it in advance. I knew the plan. I felt really good with Sandy. Like, it was not surprising or upsetting for me. I mean, I wanted you to be there, of course, but I understood, you know, it's life, it's circumstances, it just, these things happen. So, I felt really good about laboring by myself with my husband. So I did that again. This baby was a little not in a great position. So contractions came, they went, they came, they went through the night that way. I slept for a little, got back up, did it again. Until about 1:00 in the afternoon, everything kicked on. And I called Sandy and I was like, what's happening? I'm like, but I don't need you yet. That she ended up calling me back and was like, yeah, you do. So she came. And thank God, because I think they were there about 15 minutes before the baby was born. And
I always wonder what you guys are waiting for when you do that. But
I know, it's like, I don't know, because now in my position, I don't like when moms do that. I really want to do that.
On our end, we're like racing, panicking. I like to set up. I want to have time, you know, that kind of a thing. But
I know I should apologize to Sandy because I put that stress on her. But this baby decided they wanted to be born with their hand up by their head. And so that made it a lot more difficult. I had talked to you guys about being really hands off. I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to catch my own baby. You guys were totally supportive of that. So Sandy was standing by, just watching. And I finally was like, I can feel this baby's head, but it is not coming down. It's not coming out. And she was like, let me check. And she's like, oops, there's the hand. Holds her little hand out, and then came out. That was it. So I was so thankful that she was there because I did really, and it's so interesting because it was like the one I was like, I got this. Third baby, I'm gonna have this baby, I'm gonna catch this baby, I'm good. But I really did. I needed her there. I needed that situation. I needed her to handle it, and she did it like a pro. And it was so beautiful. And my other kids were there, and they got to come down, and they got to announce, you know, if we're having a boy or a girl, they got to announce all of that. So it was just special to have my kids in bed while like Sandy did the newborn exam and everything was done in my bed. And I just loved it.
And I think it's really that it's nurturing the actual like beauty of birth for the woman as changing from into a mother, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever number of times. It's the family growing with siblings and children. It's the partners. It's like so many things that need to happen so that we can evolve into this like beautiful society where we're sympathetic and compassionate, because we see it all start from birth. And I think just from what it sounds like from your experiences and from mine, that's what's kind of the main difference is like, one, we're very, you know, this medical, and we forget the compassion and the transition and all of those things that are really important as well, you know? And so, yeah, I would say that, you know, I mean, you tell me, but for me, that's the main difference in what I like about midwifery care versus medical OB care.
Yeah, for sure. It's everything, you know, birth is a miracle. Like,
Right.
I know it happens every day and women have multiple babies, but like, I never get tired of watching a woman give birth. And it don't care how many times you've done it, each time is different. And to feel supported and loved, to have your partner be there with you,
It
and to
helps
have
you
your
with parenting.
children, and to help your children, and to have your children there and see your partner supporting you and loving you, and to see your, you know, your parents or the children's grandparents come and like make food, and people surround you.
It's like it's a whole village kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's so healing, and it's something that is missing from our culture. And I mean, my hope is that every woman gets to experience that, because it's critical to the foundation of you becoming a mother, for that transition, to know that you are that strong and that powerful. And then also to know that you have people you can lean on and that are there to help and support and to love you.
Right.
It's really transformative.
Well, that's the best way to put it, Jen. Thank you. And it's perfect timing for our meeting. So thank you for sharing your experience, and to really, hopefully we can get the word out there about midwifery care and why it's so good for people. So that is all. Thank you, Jen. Have a beautiful day, everyone. And thanks for listening. All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.